Hey, Bears fans. We are here for the second round of the draft. I'm here with Q. Bears about to be on the clock, Q. I know we've sat here for a while. We've talked a little bit about the guys who have fallen off the board. A couple groans have happened already. How you doing tonight, pal?
I'm doing good, man. I am borderline clinically depressed that Keanu Benton went so close to the Bears right now. Like just 49, Bears are at 53. I've been holding my breath for the whole second round that we would get Keanu Benton, and there's still good talent on the board though. Like I'm looking at, let's see here. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can see what I'm seeing. And here we go. So Drew Sanders, don't really care about linebacker. Don't need that right now. Zach Charbonnet, I wouldn't be upset about. Josh Downs, I could be intrigued. Cam Smith's a really good corner. Zach Harrison would be a surprise this early. I'm super high on him. Like he's 46 on my board. Most boards he's in the 90s. I think you're going to have to take him somewhere around 60. Same with Javon Dexter. I'm a little higher, but there's like John Michael Schmitz is still there. Adetomo Adebawore. Like this is about the range you need to be taking either of those two guys. And the fact that they're both there is still very promising to me. I'm probably leaning towards Adetomo Adebawore.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of put a lot of our eggs in that basket too in this show, right? I mean, we kind of talked about him at length in the guys we like, guys we don't like show on Wednesday. As I sit here too, man, it's interesting to talk about this because obviously the Bears are going to pick at 53. They're going to pick shortly after that. I wanted your opinion first, like before we start to get into this, where we're going to start to see who the Bears are going to take. Do you think it's combo here, offense, defense? Do you think it's addressing the defensive line? You think they stick on one side of the football? What are you seeing here?
I honestly think they stick to their board. Like if Addy is their top player, or Tommy, or however you want to shorten it, Adetomo,
Double A,
top player. Yeah, double A. There you go. Just before you know it, he'll be Spice Adams. But
yeah, right.
if he's your top guy, I think you go for him. If John Michael Schmitz is your top guy, you go for him. Hell, maybe Darnell Washington's their top guy, and they go for him. But I think you just stick to the board. You have so many needs that it's almost a luxury when you have a lot of needs, actually, that you can just stick to the best players.
And as you talk about that, of course, there's some things going on in the draft. Let me just give you some updates here. With the 52nd pick, the Seattle Seahawks take Zach Charbonnet, your guy. He is off the board.
That's a shocker. That is an absolute shocker. With Kenneth Walker already there?
Yeah.
This is a second-round pick on a running back after Kenneth Walker, put up MVP-type numbers. Or not MVP, but Rookie of the Year type numbers.
And before that, the Dolphins select cornerback Cam Smith.
That's a solid pick. I'd like Cam Smith. He was the number 45 player on my board, which I was right with consensus. He was number 44 on the consensus board. So generally agreed there. I think that's a really strong pick for Miami. So that means the Chicago Bears are on the clock.
Yeah, that if my math checks out, plus 153, yeah, they are on the clock, waiting for that pick. Yeah, a lot of people questioning too on Twitter about the Kenneth Walker. They're in agreement with you there, and having him picking Zach Charbonnet there in the second.
Yeah, that's quite the surprise. But I think it's got to be Adetomo Adebawore right here. Like they want their 3-tech. I think he is one of the top 9 players on my board right now. He is 9th, and he fits the most clear need for the Bears here.
Well, Q, as you state that, I have the Bears pick right here if you would like it. With the 53rd pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears are selecting defensive lineman Gervon Dexter.
Oh, that's my dude. Okay, that's my dude. I just did not think they would take him this high. He is the – where am I? Let's see. He is the number 48 player on my board, so I consider this just fine value. Everyone's going to look at this as a reach, but I don't care. I like this pick. Gervon Dexter, it's pronounced like a J.
See?
Surprisingly. Gervon Dexter Sr. He just had his first son in the last year. First son was born. And I'll throw this up here. Gervon Dexter Sr., nose tackle. I think he's a perfect fit for a 40 front as a nose tackle, as like a 2-tech, maybe play a little 1-eye. I think defense shifts. He's going to be just fine serving a 3-tech role because he runs a 4.8 40 with a 7.5 3-cone. Like, he is quick. He's explosive. There's some stuff you got to iron out with him, though. Like, he is tall to begin with. He is 6'6". On top of that, he plays tall. Not a great mix. So that's fixable, though. You know, as an NFL evaluator or coach, if you're not as in me, but if you're an NFL evaluator or coach, you're looking at this guy, you're sitting there saying, I can fix that. That's as long as the guy's work ethic is there, that's easy. That's an easy solve as long as the guy's work ethic is there. And based on the stuff that we heard about Darnell Wright's workouts, I'm assuming the Bears did some very similar stuff with anyone they're picking this high to say, yeah, we know his work ethic's there. We put him through hell. Like he made past. So Dexter, the other big knock on him is he's slow off the line of scrimmage at times. Like there'll be times where the ball snaps and he's still in his stance while everyone else is moving. I personally think this is a nose tackle who played 50 snaps a game at Florida. Like, that's a lot of snaps for a nose tackle. You're going to have a heavier rotation for him in the NFL. I think that stuff gets solved with just getting him some more rest and also just experience. This guy is a fairly inexperienced player, not on the college level. He played a lot of snaps at Florida, like I said, but he actually stopped playing football in the 7th grade because he had hoop dreams. He wanted to be a baller. And then he didn't come back to football until his junior year of high school when the coaches convinced him to. So I'm excited about this guy. The second I watched this player before the Senior Bowl, so this was January, I wrote down right here in my draft notebook, I wrote down hits and underlined it next to his name because, and some people are going to disagree with me on that because there are people who think this guy is loafs all over the tape. I don't. I see him hustling to the football at the end of every single play. He might not have gone 100% every single snap, but on the defensive line, you can't, especially when you're playing 50 snaps a game. But the fact that he was always getting to the football at the end of the play, he recovered at multiple fumbles at Florida. He was always around the football. I think he fits what Eberflus wants to do. And he's such a unique frame for a nose tackle. 6'6", 320 pounds. Like, this guy is not your prototypical big guy in the middle. And he was eating up double teams on the college level pretty well. Like, you'll find snaps where he did get washed, but it's a double team. Unless you're Vince Wilfork, you're going to get washed here and there. But the versatility that he offers when defenses shift their front, for him to still be not, he's not going to be your explosive 3-tech, but he can play some snaps there when you need him to. And when defenses shift their fronts, he's going to need to. So I'm excited about this guy. I think he is a very, very impressive football player who's on the rise.
I think what you bring up there is an interesting point, too, of having that size. You talk about having the athleticism to, take on one-on-ones here and but that's the game of the NFL here, man. They're going to have to build some guys around there that, can play some snaps. And that's exactly what I think you kind of reiterated within this this talk right now. Let's move why was this not like a popular name per se? Obviously,
his
you
film
start to.
He's unconventional. He is it's very easy to flip on his tape and not feel sure about what you're seeing because he played, like I said, his leverage. He plays so tall. And he's such it's his technique needs work, but he's winning with bad technique Like,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming that they believe he's coachable, because that's the big thing here. That's that you see a guy this talented playing with bad technique. You ask, can I coach him? Can we develop this guy? And I personally think that, so you go back to 2020, his father passed away. 2 years later, his son is born. Like, I think there's a lot of maturation that happens in that time, in those life events happening. And I think
Sure.
that this is a guy who's coming to the NFL very mature. He was one of the top earners in NIL money in the
Okay.
SEC this year. Actually, I believe top earners, if not top earners, he was like one of the first big money guys. Like, he was on his P's and Q's with those contracts, and which, I don't know, maybe some people don't like that. I think that's cool. I think that shows a guy's maturity level and, ability to handle his own dealings very well.
Yeah, it seems like, because now this is going on live here on ABC. We're released a little bit ahead due to the Twitter sphere. Thanks, what is his name? Shrams. He's the one who's killed this whole thing for us.
Yeah.
But they're showing the pick now and evaluating. And like you said, I think that the one thing is it shows the highlights here, being able to push up the middle into the quarterback, getting pressure up the middle, obviously in today's NFL is critical. That way your guys on the edge can do their work, get into the quarterback and flushing them out, making plays. But yeah, no, I think obviously the 100% not made up fact, fun fact too, that you have down here is something that I very much enjoy as well. Hilarious.
Is the great grandson of Henry Paget? Is that how you pronounce that?
I think it's, yeah,
Okay.
I think it's Paget. But yeah, so now we're going to sit here and hang out until the Bears pick again.
Yeah.
We'll still talk about the player at least a little bit. But yeah, how do you think this? I'm
excited, man. Like,
you are ear to ear smiles, man. And for a while there, I'll say this. For a while there, I was worried, man, because I could see on your face as some of these names came off, you were like, oh man, like that's a guy that I really wanted. That's a name that you're hoping is there for the Bears at their pick. But your smile's back, man. You got from ear to ear.
So, I mean, I do think that this at least a little bit signals Keanu Benton was their guy. And they went the same position, the next guy down, which, I mean, they got to like him enough to take him.
Sure.
So I'm fine with it. And one of the reasons I'm smiling so much about it is this is my first year doing a full draft breakdown analysis of my own film study. And this is so vindicating. Like, I watched this guy's tape and I fell in love with him. And then I saw so many other people did not like him. And I'm sitting here going, I think he's really good. And, it's like, it just feels good to have that vindication of the Bears think he's really good too. And I think an important note here, at the combine, he was 310. At his pro day, like, I don't know, maybe a week later, he was almost 320. This guy plays at 320, 330. He's a nose tackle. Don't try to plug him in it. Like, don't try to consider him as your gap shooting 3 tech, because that's probably not what they're going to be asking him to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what do you think the reaction to most people, and we were talking about this off the air before this, some people just don't follow the draft as close as you do. What do you think the overall consensus of this pick is going to be on Twitter? Because we're not watching that. Yeah,
it's going to be called a major reach. So Dexter's average big board rank was 83. I mean, the highest that he was among the national analysts was 55. So that, like, there was one analyst out there who thinks that this was the right value, at least one. But on the average, he was 89. On the median, he was 83. So most likely this is going to be seen as a reach. Personally, I don't care. I think he's a really good football player. I had him ranked as my number 48 prospect. I think it might have been Dane Brugler who had him ranked at 55, if I remember correctly. So that's a pretty reliable name as far as I'm concerned, who really liked him.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's work to do. And one thing that people are going to knock on Dexter is short arms, 32 1/4 inch arms, which if you're looking at offensive tackles all the time, and you're saying those are really short arms. The average defensive tackle in this class has 32.8-inch arms. Defensive tackle's a little like the threshold isn't the same as offensive tackle. And also, this guy's got one of the longest wingspans in the draft class. So his reach is insane. His reach forward is not. His reach side to side is massive. So it's going to impact him probably a little getting into defenders off the snap. But as far as the net that he can cast for a tackle range, it's huge.
Let me just interject right here. The Bears have now traded up to 56 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bears are on the clock.
Do we know who went 54 and 55?
55, Rashee Rice to the Chiefs. They also traded up, and 54, Tui Tuatupo went
high
to the Chargers.
Okay, yeah, Tuli went high. He was 64 on the consensus, and you said he was 54.
Yep.
Okay, and I had him at 92. I was not as high on Tuli as a lot of other people. But Tuli's young. He's like 20. He's like 20 something. I think he's gonna be 21 as a rookie. So there's a lot of growing that he can still do. Maybe they're getting Adebawore.
That's what right. That would make sense in a lot of.
Or Schmidt. John Michael Schmitz could make sense too. But I honestly think there's a lot of centers in this class that you can get after the second round that you feel pretty good about, especially developmental guys. If you're thinking we want to start a seasoned vet this season in Cody Whitehair and have a guy in the wings to take over next season, I think there's plenty of guys after the second round that you can target. But defensive tackle, second round's kind of like, I mean, there's guys you'll find, but not it falls off quite a bit after the second round.
That brings up a good Bear conversation roster construction too, right? Like they seem to have two veteranish guys with Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair. Do you feel like looking at your board, the Bears and the Bears have made a pick with
all right.
The 56th overall in 2023, the Chicago Bears select corner Tyrique Stevenson.
Wow. Okay. Again, it's a pick I like. I was not expecting that, but that is a nice pick. Tyrique Stevenson he was number 58 on my board, number 65 on the consensus. So not a reach by really any means that you're going to look at. I mean, his highest rank was number 41. So you can get value. You can consider that value there. This guy is actually a really good fit for if the Bears want to run more cover 2, like Tampa 2 type stuff. I think Tyrique Stevenson's a really good fix. This is a press man corner. This is a guy who's going to get in your face, big, strong at the line of scrimmage. He's going to make it hard on the wide receivers to get off their release and into their route step. The knock on him, agility. You probably don't want him covering lateral stuff, downfield, heavy breaks, stuff like that. But in the cover 2, what are your corners doing? They're covering the flat and they're jamming the hell out of them. Or in cover 3, which, most teams who run a lot of cover 2 also run a lot of cover 3, he has a vertical third of the field, so he's not being asked to do that much laterally left to right. Everything is kind of vertical. So that's really the strengths of him. I think he's a really good fit for this defense. He triggers downhill fast, which Eberflus loves in his cornerbacks. He's an aggressive run defender. Really, he attacks the football. It's beautiful. He is explosive. His transition from the back pedal is just like a snap. It's like balls out, boom, I'm downhill. It's really something. He is explosive as hell. And he attacks the catch point really well. Like when the ball is up in the air on a 50-50, he plays it almost kind of like a wide receiver where he is going to get that ball or at least knock it out. And his short area burst is just really nice. In off coverage, he is not as good. He struggles when playing the quarterback's eyes, struggles with that spatial awareness of knowing what's going on around him while he's looking at the quarterback's eyes. So that might be a bit of a challenge for him in this system if they ask him to play off, but I think they're going to ask him to play on the line of scrimmage a lot and be jamming the hell out of wide receivers. This probably signals that Kyler Gordon is your nickel going forward because Tyreek Stevenson, you're playing him outside, I believe. And the pattern matching stuff, he struggles to anticipate routes when he's running pattern matching concepts, which I'm assuming the Bears do. I didn't catch last year if they did a ton of it or not. I'm sure they did because it's kind of taking over the NFL. But that spatial awareness and spot drop as well is just it's a little tougher. He's just a lot more natural in a straight man coverage, which in cover 3, I mean, really, you're not asking a guy to spot drop. You're really asking him to play man coverage and pattern match straight down vertically. So I think he'll be okay. The pattern matching has been tough, but like his natural athleticism makes up for it. And what I mean by it tough, it's like the anticipation of what the route will be has been a little rougher for him, as opposed to not being physically able to. He's physically able to stick on a man very well. And then, yeah, the last negative I have here is change of direction, which I already mentioned. Has had some injury history, tore labrum, and had surgery on it in his shoulder on the ligament. Affected him in 2021 and 2022. Had a concussion last season as well. He's the oldest of 5 kids. As a senior in high school, he played cornerback, safety, wide receiver, punter, kick returner, punt returner, and long snapper on his team. And he did have an arrest in 2019 for disorderly conduct. I don't recall what exactly that was about, but I'm assuming that the Bears have vetted that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tie up some loose ends here. The Bears traded 56 for 61 and 136 ended up being included in that. I would think that's pretty standard and no sweat off of that. You talked a lot about these 2 picks, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Q, I think this definitely signals the fact that front office and the head coach are working very closely, tighten it together on this draft.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I think Flu's got a lot of say in the second round because they were going offensive tackle in the first round. And I mean, not that Flu's won't want to draft offensive players, but it's what he knows. It's what he's made his name with. Defense is kind of what the guy is, so he's going to want to get his guys just inherently. I think any coach is going to be like that. I think Bill Belichick is going to favor defensive players still, even though
100%.
Yeah, greatest coach out there. I think he's still going to have a favorite to the defensive side. But yeah, I think they're both reasonable adults, which isn't always a given from adults, even in the NFL.
I just too I say that only because I feel like so many times as a Bear fan, we've listened and we've read things, and it's been the GM pulling the strings and telling the coach to figure it out. Am I wrong on that? I mean, sometimes I feel like the continuity, and I know that's a terrible word for us in Chicago here, being Bolts fans, continuity, having, that group together, to work together and be on the same page. I just feel like this front office has a lot more of that than the recent past. Like they seem to do a lot of things together.
I don't know. I think that I think in public perception, it just gets taken a lot that it's the GM and all the GM. I think the head coach just about always has a major say in all of these personnel decisions. I mean, except for Ryan Pace and John Fox. That's the only one.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was kind of alluding to when we talk about that. The fact that John Fox really didn't have any say in terms that he didn't even know they were drafting Mitch Trubisky after the fact of that. But it's a nice change, and I know that probably happened in the last regime too. It just failed due to scheme, due to a lot of things and draft picks.
I mean, I think Nagy had a lot of say in the guys that they drafted. I mean, we know Vic did. Vic Fangio.
Absolutely.
Vic had a ton of say in who they were drafting and what type of players, and and so much of that. But I think Nagy had a lot of say in the offensive guys that they drafted, and like in the Cole Kmet pick and the Anthony Miller pick. Trying to think who else, and David Montgomery. Like, granted, they didn't have that many high picks.
Right. Yeah. They traded them all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think like just for an overall fan as I am, I sit there and I read these things, and it just seems like both the players that you described, scheme fit, have a lot of potential. Just a few things that need to be coached up on both sides of it. But at the end of the day, they're guys that you say play through the whistle too, which obviously hits principle is a huge thing for Matt Eberflus, and obviously that's kind of showing in this round so far.
Yeah. I think I had one more thought on the thing.
Go ahead.
Saying that occurred to me. I think that what we're seeing more, and it's still early to tell, but what we're seeing with Eberflus and Poles is good compromise. I think that's something that Pace and Nagy lacked, was the ability to compromise.
Okay.
And say, we can survive without getting this guy because we got all these guys over here that we could look at. I think Pace and Nagy got tunnel vision on guys, both of them. And they were just like, that's whatever it takes, get him.
Yeah. The best organizations work together, right? That's we're hoping that at the end of the day that this ends up being two good picks, ones that we look at in the future, much as we look at like Kyler Gordon and Javon Brisker from last year. Those are very similar, had some problems, but at the end of the day, they were electric guys that came off and were able to contribute, and found their own towards the end of the season. Q, do you have any more thoughts? I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump back in later. But you want to keep going? What are you thinking, buddy?
The Bears are back up at what, 64? Or did they trade 64? Which one did they trade? 64 or 61?
61.
So Bears are back up in 5 picks.
Okay.
So
no, let's hang out.
We hang on.
There we go. But, my bad, buddy.
One last thing on Tyreek Stevenson. So he actually has an ongoing lawsuit against Marvel Studios, claiming that the Avengers movie series is based on his real life experiences. Not sure who he claims to be, but hopefully it's not Thanos. I mean, or maybe hopefully it is Thanos.
Hey, if a guy in our draft ends up being Thanos, I'm good, man. I think that's a home run, especially in the second round, right? I mean, that's.
Did we catch who went 57, 58?
58, Luke Shoemaker, and 57 was your guy, JMS. Went to
where did he go to?
The New York Giants. New York Giants.
Good for them. They got a good football player. And good for Dallas on getting Shoemaker. I really like Shoemaker. I think he is a very, very intriguing tight end. I think he is going to get a lot better. We can take a look at him really quick, actually.
Yeah.
Because he was a fun watch. Let me see here. Get that back up on the screen. And so, sorry about that.
No, you're good. We were two
I thought I was
newbies to StreamYard
on. So, Luke Schoonmaker. Can I make that a little bigger? Yeah. Oh, well. Luke Schoonmaker, tight end out of Michigan. This guy's really athletic, like surprisingly athletic. 6'5", 250 pounds. Cowboys got a good one here. Runs a 4.6, and he is a nasty intention blocker. He's low light, so his blocking doesn't always work, but the intentions are always nasty, which is something that you'd love to see. And technically, I mean, I think he's technically a better blocker than a guy like Michael Mayer. Like Mayer's has a better frame to become a really good blocker, but his technique is out of whack. And I think Schoonmaker's got the technique down, which being a lighter tight end, you really need to if you're going to block it all. I really like the way that he sells blocking through his route. Like he comes up on linebackers, on safeties who are covering him, and there is always the thought in my mind, or in their mind, of this guy's about to lay me out, which, inherently is going to keep them on their toes going forward as he can run by them, and that just impacts their recovery ability. And that is a small thing with tight ends that I really care about, them selling that block into their route. And then just his movement skills. He's a twitchy athlete, man. He's got good feet. They're quick. They're clean. He's a no-nonsense route runner. And I hate nonsense route runners. I'll be completely honest. I have been burned by too many over the years who I saw on tape and was just saying, oh, man, their feet look really cool. They must be really good. It can be a lot of nonsense. It throws off play timing. They're not where they're supposed to be on time. He's no nonsense. Straight into his route, gets exactly where he's supposed to be on the right path and executes it exactly how it's drawn up, which is something that I, over the years, have become very drawn to, mainly this year. I never thought about that much until this year, but after seeing some of it this year on tape, I really kind of hit the point where I was like, okay, stop all these stutter steps, stop all these juke moves, just run your route. Which sounds very old man and curmudgeon-y of me, but I'm okay with that. Now, his route tree isn't the most extensive among tight ends. I mean, it was mostly a vertical route tree. He wasn't running a lot near the line of scrimmage or any type of like double moves or anything like that. So he's from Michigan. It's a running offense. They're going to pound it and then go vertical. And like I said earlier, a little underweight, so his blocking can get blown up by bigger guys, tends to play too tall in his blocks, and physical coverage can mess with his route. Like, he's not as physical at the stem as I expected him to be. I think with his play demeanor, he'll get there, but it's still just kind of a figuring out phase. I mean, I look at him like Dalton Knox. I think he is very similar to Dalton Knox. He was actually a QB for 3 years of high school, which is something I love to see on any pass catcher because they see the field the same way the QB does usually. And it means that they're going to be a QB's best friend. They're going to find space when they need to. They're going to help their QB out. And he actually missed most of his junior year of high school and had to repeat it because of mono and a spleen condition. I think he had to have his spleen removed. Dad was a college basketball player and played professionally in Brazil. And Luke himself worked as a lion tamer in the circus as a teenager.
That is the fact of the night so far. Big fan. Circus lion tamer, man. That's should have been a bear. Lion tamer should have been a bear. Gonna do some housekeeping just for a second here, Q. Announce the picks for you. Okay. So obviously that was 58 and 59 ended up being offensive lineman Osiris Torrance to the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, that's a Yahtzee. 59 on my board.
There you go. With pick 60, the Bengals selected cornerback DJ Turner.
Ooh, that's a guy who I'm a little lower on. But at 60, I think he was 77 on my board, but consensus he was 56.
And with the 61st pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars went with tight end Brenton Strange.
Wow. Okay.
So Darnell Washington's still on the board.
Brenton Strange went higher than projected. Oh, man. What pick did you say that was? 61?
That was 61.
Who took him?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville. And one more time, who took Osiris Torrance at 59?
That was the Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay. Torrance should be a solid pick for the Bengals. I think that makes sense. I mean, he's...
Oh, no, sorry. 59, that was the Bills. My mistake on that.
Bills. Okay.
Bills.
Either way.
Sorry.
I think he'll fit in just fine there. Their run scheme is so multiple. They might have to lean more towards a gap run scheme with him because he doesn't have the movement traits that you're looking for. he's just a big mean people eater. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what he does. He pushes guys around and picks up yards because of it. DJ Turner was a corner who I wasn't as high on. I spent a lot of his tape wondering what I was missing because a lot of people are higher on him. Granted, I will say defensive backs was some of the tape that I struggle more with. So I could very easily be wrong on him, but I didn't see a lot on his tape that I really felt like I was that impressed by. Brenton Strange, though. So going at 61, he was number 97 on the consensus. I had him at 112, but I'd come around to him more. Like I liked him more than my ranking, to be honest. It was late in the process, and I didn't get the chance to go back and change my board when I was talking to Robert Schmitz about him, and Robert kind of made me turn my head a little and be like, okay, I might have been a little hard on him. He's an interesting player out of Penn State. So if you're a draft Nick and you've paid attention to Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion, this is the guy who Zach Kuntz couldn't beat out at Penn State. He's fun, man. He's an aggressive blocker. He's probably a move tight end in the league. Like 1.57 10-yard split is really that's impressive for a tight end. This guy can move in short areas pretty well. Low below average on agility and right at average on 40. But the vertical and the broad, you can see he's got some explosive traits, and he's just got a powerful base, man. And he likes to hit people. Like his blocking, you can tell he enjoys it. Which you don't find with a lot of tight ends who just really relish that part of the game. And he's a difference maker on a lot of their screens and their outside runs, some of their more creative blocking concepts. He was getting out in space, finding the guy he's supposed to hit, and hitting the block with a little bit of nasty. And good enough hands, sneaky speed, and he ran some interesting route concepts, I thought. That was kind of cool to see from a guy who I think he's got more route running juice than he showed at Penn State because of what Penn State's offense is. But he's going to have to show it at the next level. And I felt like he had a really good feel for finding the soft spots, feeling out the soft spots and finding them in zone coverage, which is, again, that's another thing I care about a lot with tight ends, how they manage that. How can they, put the leverage on the coverage and then find that blind spot when they're going up against a zone and just make life easy for their quarterback. I comped him here to Foster Moreau. I wasn't super strong on that comp. I'll be honest. It was just it was one I found, and last hour I was just trying to fill in as many comps as I could. I was like, this will work.
Yeah, there we go.
But he earned his scholarship offers after attending camps at Ohio State. He had none at the start of recruiting, and he had to go the hard way, go to camps and earn them there, which is something that you love to see in a player. And lastly, he once met John Stamos in an airport.
Full house, man. All about Full House. Uncle Jesse, man. I'm all about it. I think that the Bears are close to being on the clock.
Yeah.
So we announced the Strange pick last, and then the Texans traded up with the Eagles to select fellow name Juice Scruggs.
Who took Juice this early?
The Houston Texans.
Wow. I mean, I like Scruggs enough. Like, I had him ranked 144. His consensus was 144. I mean, I get the feeling that Juice Scruggs was one of the best interviews in this class because I kept hearing about him and I didn't understand why, which means that
we have that effect on people, fellow Juices,
Yeah. But so he's a really interesting prospect, has guard center versatility. And this impacts the Bears. He was probably a guy they were looking at as one of those later round centers. Super powerful base. This guy is a legit anchor on your offensive line. Like once he sets that anchor down, he ain't going anywhere. He called the protections for Penn State, and just hard to move. Really good hand placement, really strong punch, and quick processor. As stuff's changing on the defensive front, he sees it, he reacts, smooth as butter, just like done, like nothing happened. When he isn't in position, slow feet, some balance issues. He just really can't recover very well. Ends up lunging, leaving his feet behind because he's not a quick mover. He was actually above average in his 40 and his 10-yard split, surprisingly. But on tape, I didn't see his feet as a plus. And moving up to the second level and like in his own blocking scheme or anything like that, I thought was difficult. And his punch was just a little slow. It's strong, but it's a little winding and a little bit more slow moving. He actually broke a vertebrae in a car accident 3 years ago and spent a full year in a back brace rehabbing. He was a team captain. He graduated. There's a lot of stuff to like about him, which is what makes me think he was probably a really, really strong interview, which is why he's being drafted where he is. And who knows, maybe that stuff impacted his foot speed and stuff, the tape that I saw, and it's something that's getting better and better. I don't know. He has a burner account, though, that he exclusively uses to trash on Pixar movies, which that's got to be a negative.
Yeah, that's maybe the most negative fact that you brought up. Almost makes him undraftable. I will say that the nickname though, big fan of that. Yeah. Big fan of the fact they like that over milk. Yeah, just to let so we are slowly approaching. It seems like we've hit like a little lull here, but the Denver Broncos have traded up. They are on the clock and the pick is in. I cannot get an update on who that pick is and is going to be. So I'm a little disappointed. I was watching somewhat of the Cubs game on my phone, at least a little bit, or following. They have lost 3-2 to the Marlins and kind of blew it in the ninth. So if it's affecting my mood just a little bit, Q, as you know, there's reasons why. So now we have a pick in for the Denver Broncos with pick 63 in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Denver Broncos select wide receiver Marvin Mims. The Lions traded this pick to the Broncos for their first pick of the 2023 NFL Draft. So the Lions send 63 and 183 for 68 and 139. Just to close out that. Yep, Denver.
So Mims goes before Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt, A.T. Perry, Cedric Tillman. I'm sure there's some others who were above him. Mims was an interesting case in this class because he was there are some people who looked at him and said, I don't see why you would put Jalen Hyatt ahead of him. There are some people who looked at him and said, no, he's way below those guys. Like he was just kind of polarizing, it seemed like. I was one who looked at him and said, this guy seems pretty dang good. And he was playing in an Oklahoma offense that was on its deathbed last year. Like that Oklahoma offense was brutal. Like the quarterback play was just atrocious. And you look back at what he was doing with Caleb Williams the year before, and it was pretty impressive. But the issue was he wasn't the guy in that offense. You know, he wasn't, he only had, I think, like 600 or 700 yards, which is not enough on your resume to be considered a high-end player if you don't have a really good year the next year after Caleb Williams transfers to UFC and Oklahoma is kind of in shambles on offense. And not just Caleb Williams, for multiple players transfer away from Oklahoma to follow Lincoln Riley to USC. But I really like Mims. He was 73 on my boards, take him at 63. That's something I can really believe. And I think he's a guy who I would have been happy for him to be a Bear, if I'm being completely honest. He is a threat on the field every time he's on the field. Short, deep, intermediate. I feel like he can play all three levels and just he's just smooth, man. There's a saying like, what is it? Twitchy is better than, or smooth beats twitch. Smooth athleticism beats twitch. If you look at a guy, you go, man, that's a twitchy athlete. Take the smooth athlete over him, because the smooth athlete, it's easy for him. You know, everything is easy for him on those movements. It's not as herky jerky. It's not like you're putting that strain on your joints of the explosiveness. Like some of these guys, like Christian Gonzalez yesterday is the best example I can come up with. Most athletic guy in this class, probably. His tape is so smooth. Everything is just like natural and just easy to do for him. And that's how I feel about Mittens. That he's got that smooth athleticism.
Well, the pick is in, Q.
All
the
right.
Bears we're waiting for the announcement. I'm still refreshing my sauces, as Ron called it yesterday, as Mr. Luce called it, but I am still not seeing a leak yet. I may just be missing it. Some sauces are better than other sauces.
So Zach Pickens and Zach Harrison are who I think this pick will be. One of those two. Or wait, Addie's still on the board.
He is.
Okay, this has got. I mean, if it's not Adebawore, it means that they just don't like him, which
passing over 3 times
can be understood. Like, I don't necessarily love Adebawore. I like his upside. I like the potential of him, but if a lot of it comes down to the practice field and the meeting room with how you feel, how I would feel about Adebawore if I were in Ryan Poles' shoes. And I just wasn't there, so I can't tell you how it went. But so for me, it would go Adebawore, Zach Harrison, Zach Pickens here. Those would be my top 3. Maybe a Tucker Kraft or a Luke Whippler I could be interested in. Josh Downs I'd consider, but like I was saying earlier, with the no nonsense route running, Josh Downs scares me with that stuff. And I'm probably scarred because I loved Anthony Miller when they drafted him. And that was Anthony Miller to a T. All the nonsense in the routes.
Q, I think I'm about to make you smile even wider here.
Yeah.
One of those names that you just named, with the 64th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Bears are selecting defensive tackle Zach Pickens.
All right. When you said Zach, I thought it was going to be Harrison. But that's okay. I love Zach Pickens. I love both the Zachs. One of them has 2 C's. The other has 1 C. That's how you can differentiate them. I didn't know where I was going with that.
No, I feel like you've lost your train of words because you are happy about the fact that the Bears have picked Zach Pickens.
I'm thrilled. I just made a video about Zach Pickens on my YouTube page today. So Zach Pickens was one of the top recruits in the nation. He was number 8 recruit in the country in 2019. Committed to South Carolina, was a big freaking deal for the Gamecocks, right? They were like, we got this guy. We just lost Clowney, but we got this guy coming in, and he's going to be really, really good. Turns out, wasn't a great fit for their defense. He is a 290 to 300 pound 3-tech, ideally. Penetrate gaps, get in there, wreak havoc in the backfield. But the Gamecocks defense wants you a 2-gap, wants you to hold up the line of scrimmage, wants you to be stuffing the run lanes. And he did it. He didn't excel at it, but he got the job done. Playing a position that probably wasn't what made him best. In some of the reps I was watching today, he was playing 0-tech nose tackle right over the center. That's not what this guy is. This guy is an athletic freak 3 technique who needs to be shooting into the backfield as fast as he can, using his athletic gifts, his agility. Like, look at his athletic testing numbers here. It's all green except for bench press.
Yeah.
That is everything above average. And that is all combine numbers. There is no pro day juice in that. This guy is long, tall, athletic 3 technique who is going to just wreak havoc through the gaps. Very impressive frame. He he looks like a Greek god. Like he's 290 pounds and it's thick. Like it ain't flab. And uses those long arms well, gets him into, well, not the best, I should say. He uses it to leverage his position decently. And he stays square with the blocker. And when he's not, he has the core flexibility. Like think about when you're in the gym and you're doing like a torso rotation or something like that. Think about that motion and how it applies to football, right? It applies a lot on the line, you would think.
Sure.
That's all core strength right there. That ability to be, your hips are facing one way, but you need power going the other way. That's something that he has a ton of. He is able to get that core flexibility and power to work for him in weird positions when he's out of position, which it happens a lot when you're on the D line, and to generate power that can create an impact to get into the backfield, to get into the run lane. That's really how he won in that South Carolina defense. It was using that core strength to his advantage, and his body control is just excellent. He is super flexible. His back can go in really weird directions, and he's still like finding ways into the play and maintaining his balance, and he can create angles with that. He can get into plays that he shouldn't be in because of that athleticism, that flexibility, that core strength that he has. Now, on the negatives, his hands, kind of like Ricky Bobby, just doesn't know what to do with them sometimes. Like, I mean, that's why I said, like, I said, uses his length well. Well, kind of. Like, he leverages his arm length well, but he doesn't have super advanced hand technique yet. It's something that needs to keep developing. But it's not something that he was asked to develop a lot at South Carolina. So I feel good about his prospect to develop it at the next level. And what comes with that, struggles to disengage at times, string together secondary moves, which on the interior, typically if you're a defensive tackle, you got one, maybe two moves. You don't have that many counters because it's either you win or you don't. It's not like edge rusher where you have some sustained plan where you might be hitting your third move to get to the quarterback. It usually is an edge rusher. You win right away or you don't. And then his anchor's enough. He's not going to hold up against double teams against the run. You know, that's not what he should be asked to do. It's stuff that he was asked to do at South Carolina, and he did it enough, but it's not something that you expect him to be doing at the NFL level. He's going to hold up against the run enough. Most of the plays he makes against the run is going to be shooting through gaps. It's not going to be Akeem Hicks holding up three guys and then, stuffing the run lane with the blockers. Like that's right. He's not that type of player. I comped him to Gerald McCoy here, which is probably pretty generous athletically, though. That's all there. That is 100% there athletically. Needs to develop some to get there. Needs to develop quite a bit to get there. But I believe a kid like this, highly, highly touted recruit, elite athlete, was an honor roll student at South Carolina, graduated with his degree in sports and entertainment management, which I'm not really sure what that means, like what you study in that, but it's still a degree. He was a team captain, and when he was in high school, he played running back as well as D-line, which is a rare combo.
Yeah.
And then the 100% not made up fun fact, he loves cosplay, and his go-to costume is Howard the Duck.
Well, we may end up seeing a few of those around Hallis Hall. Q, you have him so much higher than a lot of, as I look at your ranks. Obviously you love the athletic ability, his makeup, his build. How easy is it to teach, things with the hands on the defensive line? Do you think that the Bears coaching staff's gonna be able to coach this kid up?
Optimistically, yeah, I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, it takes good coaches and good students.
Sure.
Right? It takes a kid who wants to get better, who wants to be putting in his time off the field and away from the practice facility, going and learning knife fighting. techniques like Aaron Donald did. Like it's like this stuff isn't. It's not stuff that just happens at practice. It's what they do off the field, away from the facility, how much effort that they are putting in individually. And that's where, like I was saying earlier, so much comes down to the interviews, the private workouts that we will just never have access to. But you have to believe, like I mentioned earlier, based on what we heard about Darnell Wright's workout, that the Bears front office is trying very hard to get that right.
Yeah.
And there's some character things here that you really like with Zach Pickens. And I think that he's going to put the work in. I mean, heck, the guy played in a scheme he had no business playing in at 290 pounds. Like that's impressive to me alone.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think that ends up being maybe why these, as you look at these rankings, you don't find him at maybe towards the top. Being out of that scheme is definitely when you're not being, use your talents the right way. It's hard to be the top player that you could. And especially what I love is you said he was the 8th recruit in 2019. I mean, it's clear that this kid's got insane athletic ability, insane tools that are going to translate no matter what. Like we say all the time on the show, you can't teach athleticism. You can't teach those. You could teach techniques.
Mm-hmm.
You could teach, where to be, the smarts, the awareness, and things like that. I hope that that's when they looked at this pick, that's what they were seeing. They're saying, all right, he has things that he puts on tape we can't teach. But there's things that he's going to have to work on that we can absolutely capitalize. Maybe we get a good steal here. Top of the 3rd round. And the Bears, I think, by everything you said, seems like they got a really good player here.
Yeah, I am excited about their whole haul here on day 2. I think that it's not what everyone was mocking. It's not the guys that everybody thought it would be, but it's a couple players who I tweeted out multiple times today about to keep an eye on because I thought they were really good scheme fits for what the Bears want to do. And the Bears agree. And I'm excited about that. They have a vision of what they want to be, and they're going and doing it, which is
that's all you can ask.
Can't ask for much more than that.
That's all you can ask. Go out there, make your board, and pick guys that fit the scheme. And two, we talked about it earlier. For so many times, it seemed like we drafted guys that didn't fit, and then you try to place them in a position that they're not comfortable with. It's the same thing with this kid in college. You're playing a scheme that doesn't fit you. You're trying to make, obviously, like he had a decent year over in LA, but you guys like Leonard Floyd, it's like you try to make them this, but they're not big enough to be this. They're athletic enough, but you try to, when the minute that you fail in the draft is when you don't draft by scheme. And I think as a Bear fan, you got to be happy the fact that all these guys they picked today fit. They absolutely fit. Now it's just about, coaching them up, getting them to their potential, and, add some guys that, maybe they didn't get a guy that you have to game plan fully for, but eventually you bring that in and it lets these guys shine, right? That's the next step of this. This isn't the top of the end of the draft, guys. When you get to these points of the draft, there's weaknesses left and right, and everyone's going to yell at everybody at why this was a bad pick or this wasn't. But when they can go out and they have money to spend, definitely at this position next year, and they're going to have draft capital to do it as well, you're going to be able to add the guy on that line eventually. Now it's about adding those pieces now, so when you do get the guy, it makes life easier, and you don't have to worry about, worrying about this guy that you picked in the 5th round, being that role guy next to the guy. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it seems like these picks were today.
Yeah, build that Philly 8-man rotation that is just disgusting.
Yeah, right. That's exactly, and I think that we're well on that step, right? Well on that road to getting there. But overall, I want your ranking for A to F. How'd they do over the course of our hour? We're approaching the hour mark now. How they did with their haul so far with the 2nd round and with this early 3rd round pick.
I love it. I mean, I'm sure people out there aren't going to love it, but I think that they crushed it. I think that they knocked this out of the park. the value. Maybe they could have waited on these guys, but you know what? I don't know that. These guys are pretty high on my board. They might have been pretty high on someone else's board. I don't know that you're getting these guys if you wait around much longer. Actually, right before jumping on this, in a group chat I'm in, there was some talk about Pickens, and someone was like, in the 4th, feel great about him, but in the 60s, But I bounced back. It's like, I love Pickens in the 60s. I think that is exactly where he should be. Like, so clearly I feel a little differently about these players than some other analysts out there, some other people out there. But that doesn't take away to me what I think I saw on tape. You know,
No.
I thought I saw very quality players that I feel very good about the Bears walking into next year with now. Guys who, good pedigree, like good Gervon Dexter, Zach Pickens, Tyree Stevenson, they all have green flags on their character checklist. Zach Pickens wasn't a scheme fit in the world of NIL. He probably could have left South Carolina and made a big bag somewhere else. He didn't. He stayed. That says something to me about who the guy is, his commitment to his teammates, and to keep working for them, even if it's something that he is not being put in the best position to succeed with. Like, he goes to Bama on make some, $1 million NIL deal or whatever it might be. Would he be a first-round pick right now?
Good chance.
I mean,
There's
maybe
a
not
chance.
first, maybe early second, but like if he went to another team that would have highlighted his skills more, I think he's higher on this big board than he has been.
And it's a great analysis. I think you've kind of hit on all the marks. Did the Bears pick again in the 3rd?
Unless they trade up.
Unless they trade up, no. So, and that's what I thought too. Are there any? Because I thought we were going to just hang out. If they do trade up, we won't be back. Any final thoughts? Any final remarks? Any disappointments? Any wins? What do you got for me?
No, I feel good about it. Like and I'm too close to this. So, because these were 2 of these 3 guys were on my guys list. Like, so, like the guys who I would jump on any podcast and just start screaming their praises from the mountaintops, hoping that someone heard me. So I'm a little bit biased here, but like to put it in perspective, I write this article series every draft. The other guys, Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens, were 2 guys who I was this close to writing an article about. And then I didn't, because I thought there's a real chance they're going on day 2, and I want to keep this to day 3 guys.
Well, I think we'll get out of here that way. Hopefully these are guys I'm watching, and Q, you're going to be joining me up in section 319 soon this coming year, watching these guys play football for a long time for our Chicago Bears. Like I said, we are going to go off the air and hang out, just me and Q. And if the Bears do come back into the 3rd round, we will go live again. If not, you can find all of our podcast groups over at OnTap Sports Net. Crack 'em is our hashtag. Bulls, Bears, Hawks, Cubs, Sox, MMA, we got it all. Head over to OnTap Sports Net. Make sure you are following Q at Buckus Stats, myself at Juice on Tap. Make sure you're following Ron Luce over at, I think it's Luce on Tap.
Yep.
He is at a wedding right now, so he's hopefully drinking his way in celebrations to the fact that the Bears made some solid picks tonight so far, and it could not be done. Like I said, if they do trade back up, we will be here again. But until then, Q, let's get out of here the only way we know, with a bear down.
Bear down.